gonna move down with you. I hate these. Yeah, I know.
I like literally right out the door. So I don't know what I have. Like,
We'll wait a few.
I think he is. I don't
We're
think
live,
It's
though.
exactly.
We're gonna give Rick 2 minutes. He's always on time.
did you turn it on already?
Yeah.
Yes.
Usually.
There's a recording. Do you want to sing for us?
I will refrain.
No, I am the liaison
Usually he
to the
drives
school
by
building
Yeats, and I
committee.
didn't hear
I don't
him,
think.
so
Do you want me to say anything?
No.
All right, good.
Unless you want to.
Well, I can. Yes, I was.
I know, I think as soon as I left, I was children were texting me and.
Which works.
There's going to be multiple tables, and I think people are concerned about their registration.
I'm gonna get started. Welcome to the September 3rd Finance Committee meeting. Tonight we have the continuation of the reserve fund transfer. Rick, do you want to come on up?
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, Chad, I provided another reserve fund transfer request form for the board members. A couple of weeks ago when we discussed this, there were two pieces. One that came through we didn't anticipate at this point, which was a proposal from the second company, which is a couple $1,000s less than the first one. The difference is that we are required in the secondary proposal to have a licensed electrician there for setup and breakdown. But it is about $2,300 less, which I note in my memo. The major piece is that we did get confirmation from Cable Access Corp that the chairman has informed me that they are prepared to contribute about $7,500 to the overall cost of the audio-visual piece of running this town meeting, primarily because it goes a long way towards assisting them with their coverage of the meeting for the public through Cable Access. So with those two pieces in place, the reserve fund transfer that I'm requesting at this point is $7,999. If you'd like to make it a round number, that's up to the finance committee, but
Keep our dollar.
I don't make this stuff up. This is what it adds up to. As I said, the cost of the electrician required in the secondary proposal is going to be absorbed by the school department, most of which could probably be dealt with staff, licensed electrician they have on staff there in the form of their facilities manager. So those are the two pieces. So that's why the amount has been reduced, and I think we feel good that if we that we won't need any additional funds to run the town meeting at this point. That also includes a secondary piece for the rental of the tent and the additional chairs for the meeting. So that is all included. It's not an additional cost over and above what's being requested through the reserve fund transfer. Should the finance committee vote to do this, I know we talked about it at the last meeting. The next article on the 2-article warrant would be to transfer funds back into the reserve fund, so that you don't have to go the rest of the fiscal year with half a reserve fund. So I suspect if one passes, the other should probably pass in a matter of seconds, if not minutes. But that ultimately is for the board to put on the warrant, agree to do so, and then you can, I assume the finance committee will make a positive recommendation on doing that at that time. So, and again, if this does pass at town meeting, also there will be a cost for the election itself, special election, and the town clerk has broken down broken it down to just under, I think about 11,000 change for what the expenses would be attributable to that. And, you know, we can also do a transfer, make it a 2-article transfer. A 1-article, 2-piece transfer at the special town meeting. I'm a little hesitant to recommend that there be a move to do that, at least until the article passes that requires us to hold a town meeting. I think it's, a special election. So that's not encompassed anywhere here, the cost of the special election itself, should we get to that.
No way to work that into all the elections coming up? I'm sure there's one coming with all the commercials.
Well, that would require us to hold it during the state election, and it's too late for us to get a ballot question on the state ballot.
You can't do a separate ballot?
Well, you could run a dual election, but that gets very complicated. You're actually giving people 2 ballots, and the town clerk would have to check people in twice. It gets very complicated. I know of situations where that's happened, and no town clerk I've talked to will ever do it again. Not only that, the timing of it would compromise the need to act within a certain time frame to meet the requirements of the school building authority.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that the committee approve the request for transfer in the amount requested.
Second. Anybody?
I'm going to second it.
Okay, it's a motion and a second. Discussion?
Oh, go ahead, Cindy.
I think we had this discussion before. We really need this tent. We can't register into the gym if they're gonna do it by alphabet. Break it up into the doors. You got the table there, and then when people come, they register and just flow the people into the gym until the gym is filled, and then the next group of people, once that's done, just flow them into the cafeteria or the music room, rather than spend it. And is there a second, or is this the only tent company and chair company that we ever went and got an estimate on? Not that it's a lot in comparison, but if we're gonna be spending another 11,000 over and above this, and we knew this was coming up, I'm going right back to the fact we didn't do our homework initially, knowing that this special election was coming up, and now we're looking for, it's much less, because we went back and got, another estimate and got the cable and stuff, but, another 11,000 over and above.
The only thing I would say to that, Cindy, number one, until there's a positive vote at town meeting, we don't know there's going to be an election. It's right at this point. We're presuming the town meeting will be successful. So, and as it pertains to the town clerk's efforts to register voters in a particular manner, she's not here tonight, but I know she's done some homework with other town clerks in the area to try to determine what was most helpful for them in dealing with crowds they have not seen before. So, I understand it's a cost, and nobody appreciate the fact that nobody wishes to spend those funds, but organizing it in a way that people who might not actually spend a lot of time or not necessarily regulars for town meeting can best be processed through and into the building without causing interior issues and egress problems should there be a public safety event or something is a legitimate concern, at least. So, I appreciate there might be other opinions on maybe the best way to get people in and out, but at this point, I think working with the research the town clerk has done is at least comforting to know that there's a plan in place.
The only question I'm sorry for being late, but the only question I have, is this going to affect the election in November? In other words, is the town clerk going to have to come before us and ask for a transfer of funds in order to have the general election?
No, that is budgeted for. The number of the previously scheduled elections is in the municipal budget that was funded at the annual town meeting. There will be a need to be funds transferred for the special election should this be successfully approved at town meeting.
I think the motion right now is just for this, so I think we should try and stay on that, and when we get to that, if that was to happen to the future elections, we'll deal with that.
A couple things, all on this subject. we didn't pick up on this either. We, as the finance committee, we knew that there was a school building committee, that we knew that we were looking for this. We didn't see this in the budget, none of us asked either. So I understand that I'm just saying, it wasn't,
You know.
it wasn't that we weren't aware of it, I think we just,
Right, but in fairness, I don't think any of us were certain the timetable for when this project would be approved through MSBA, what the track would be, whether it would be this year, whether there'd be delays, whether there'd be requests for additional site study. I mean, we just didn't know.
right, that's what I mean, I don't think it was anyone's fault that,
So for
I
us to have.
don't, in other words, I don't think that we didn't do our homework.
Oh, I agree.
As-
And
I'm
I
just
think
sa-
if we were
We
sitting in.
didn't ask,
Right.
hey, where's that, are we budgeting for that, or,
But
they
I think there
didn't
could
come
have been
out.
some legitimate questions asked if we did try to budget for this before the project had been approved at certain stages by MSBA. There could have been legitimate questions as to whether or not we really knew if we would ever need the money or not, so.
But I don't think, you can't get the money from the school study for
No.
this type of,
Exactly.
that's not what the money's for, so we wouldn't have been able to use that anyways.
Exactly.
My other question, just because, that was more of a comment, but I have a question because I've had people ask me, has anyone looked into, and I wasn't at the last meeting, so maybe you have, having the meeting at Massasoit, what the cost of that would be? Because I know we've said in the past, if we were going to run into an issue where we had a larger than capacity town meeting, that it would have to be held someplace like Massasoit Community College, or someplace that would hold that many people, because we don't have any buildings that have that capacity to hold a town meeting.
I do not, I know I didn't look into what the cost of holding it in an out-of-town facility would be. The goal that we had was to see if there was any way we could accommodate what the anticipated crowd any way possible in town first. The concern being that if you go out of town, you're going, there's a potential you're going to lose a lot of participants. So.
I've
The
had
answer-
people
yeah,
ask,
right.
because we have said that before publicly, that if we were going to have an overflow crowd, we couldn't
Right.
even have town meeting at
Sure.
the high school because, and so I've had a lot of people ask me, if they're looking for money, why aren't we to do these
Sure.
additional,
Yeah. Well, obviously, I'm sure it wouldn't be free to go to Massasoit. It would also
Right.
cost, you also consider the collective time and energy of each individual, participant to get in their vehicle, drive, attend. I mean, there's a lot of collective time and energy there too. It's not just the funding. The concern initially was that we weren't sure if we could feasibly hold a town meeting that could accommodate up to 1,500 people. And that was the number that we agreed upon after talking to other communities to determine generally what the percentage of turnout at the town meeting was versus their registered voters in town. And that's why when you looked at Hanson's and the East Bridgewaters and Rocklands, the comparable for Abington was about 1,500 people. And a subsequent look at the town's facilities with a certain setup in the gymnasium and the overflow areas that we're proposing to be able to provide electronic access to so we can hold the town meeting. We can do it in-house at the high school. We had looked at the Beaver Brook. The problem there was there was less of an overflow capacity. The parking was going to be a very, very difficult challenge, particularly for seniors, who would have to walk a great distance, or for us to literally have to get shuttles.
that's
to
the other
shuttle
thing, you
people
don't think
from one
parking's
parking
gonna
lot
be
to
an
another.
issue here with
Well-
that size crowd?
Well, I think parking's going to be a challenge anywhere, but it'll be feasible to hold it between the parking that's available at the high school, surrounding
Both lots,
this
town
facility
hall.
here. It's the best we can do. We'll put it. It won't be perfect, but it's the best we can do to make it as convenient as possible. But it's a very good question. I think there's no The consensus was that if we didn't have the capacity to feasibly find a way to put 1,500 people in one facility, then we might have to look outside the town. But the problem with that is it will definitely, you will lose participation. And you will probably lose participation primarily from the people who are less able to, to transport themselves, whether it's people
I
who are
would think
able
you'd
to
have to offer
drive or-
busing and.
Right, so. it
One
may be-
last question.
Sure.
So the intent, and I know we can't earmark anything, but the intent would be to then replenish the reserve fund at the
The next article on the warrant. 2 articles on the
Same day.
warrant.
same
Do it
day.
immediately, correct.
So at the,
Right, there'll be 2 articles at the
Special
special
town
town
meeting.
meeting warrant.
that's it. Thank you.
That's appreciated. No?
Any further discussion? Do you have something?
I also wasn't at the last meeting, so this might have been discussed. Was everybody?
Not even, yeah, they had sports night at the high school.
What is the capacity within the building that we're looking at? What is the size of the tent, the number of the chairs? Are we renting all the chairs? Are we bringing chairs from other sources that we already have?
Okay. Well, the capacity in the main gymnasium with some floor seating and utilizing all of the pull-out benches can be maximized at about between 1,000 and 1,100. This is an analysis by the building commissioner and the fire chief. That is why the overflow rooms that have been chosen, we've dispensed with the idea of an outside tent for seating. We're able to, with the help of electronic media, can access the gym, not the gymnasium, the cafeteria and the music room upstairs for an overflow crowd, to put an additional 400 to 500 people in the building. And one of the keys is that they have to have the same ability to, if you're in an overflow setting, you still have to have the same ability to participate as somebody who's in the main room. And that's why
Yes.
it's important for everybody who's participating in the meeting has to be able to hear each other. Ideally, they can see each other. The moderator has to have access to people who are in a different room also. Or else, if you don't have the capacity to put the people in the building somewhere, you have to postpone the town meeting, reschedule it within a certain time frame, and we're going through all this anyway, but not in anything close to an orderly fashion at that point. So I know there was some initial talk, and we did look at the potential cost of having a large outdoor tent for an overflow crowd, and for a lottery, the cost was about an additional $7,000, which is more than the other overflow rooms. Not to mention the issues with weather you might have, and that made that less of a attractive scenario. So everybody will be indoors. Excuse me.
Okay, so the tent will be used specifically for registration.
Voter registration before people go into the facility, so that
The
you don't.
chairs are for within the building, and
Right.
we don't have enough.
Right, the chairs would be
Yeah.
primarily for the overflow areas, because there's been about 600 chairs that have been, we had looked at even borrowing chairs from other communities, but the cost of getting them over here, that's not gonna happen for free either, outweighed, paying $1.25 for rental chairs. So we've identified the need for about 400 chairs for the overflow seating for the music room and the cafeteria. There are some, for instance, the cafeteria has the, picnic bench style seating, which does not contribute to maximizing crowd or participating in a meeting. So that's where the chairs would be utilized in the overflow areas, not in the main gym and not outside.
So the chairs, you said $1.25.
I
is
more,
the
yeah, I believe
ballpark,
so, yeah.
that's-
Delivered, picked up, and delivered.
So that's somewhere ballpark 600 or so.
Correct. I actually had that broken down probably in a prior, but it's part of the 3174 that's the ballpark.
So 10 for registration is 2,500.
Yeah. Well, you're looking to get all precincts, which again would be alphabetical though, according to, that is the town clerk's current idea is to do it alphabetically, because a lot of people who are attending might not, it may be their first town
They
meeting.
may not know their precinct.
They probably don't know their precinct. And people who have voted forever don't necessarily remember their precinct, so. So in order to avoid chaos and to keep to the extent there's going to be confusion, to keep it out of the main lobby of the building, where, again, there's going to be some potentially egress issues. That's important from a public safety standpoint. Certainly, could you work around it? I mean, sure you could, but in terms of trying to create the best convenience for the public, the meeting is scheduled at 10 a.m. We don't want to be registering people till noontime if you get the kind of crowd that's possible. You want to be able to get them in so that the meeting can start in a relatively on time, because people may be, again, maybe getting childcare. There's a lot of, you can imagine the different reasons why it's important to try to at least try to get this as close to on time as possible. And it's going to be hard to do that if you're registering people in the lobby.
Further discussion? This is a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. So the next thing that we should talk about is, next week is when we need to meet the deadline of the 14th, to have our recommendations posted for the town meetings, 2 warrant articles. So the next meeting will be next Wednesday, which is the 10th.
And the selectmen will have the draft warrant Friday for their agenda. They'll have to formally vote in on Monday night. So you'll have a draft of it by the end of the week also that you can circulate to the members. And again, there's only the 2 articles. It's the major article, and that would be the line item transfer from one, probably from the, right now, as some of you may remember, the VOTEC assessment was lowered a little bit when their budget finally was culminated, and there's about $14,300 left in that line item. As you can see, most of that can be used to offset costs. But that second article would be just to replenish the reserve fund from the costs associated with this event.
Brings us to liaison reports. Anybody? Public comment?
Maureen Jansen, 201 Patricia Drive. I just wanted to let you know the same things that you guys were considering with regard to having it elsewhere as opposed to having the meeting in town, the tents or the no tents, the chairs versus no chairs. I can just assure you that the Board of Selectmen was also considering and sort of struggling with that too. Aside from the cost perspective, and a lot of what Rick brought up were the same things we thought of. Trying to keep it in town for the ease of the people that are getting there. It's on a Saturday morning, which is very different, but trying to keep as much consistency as possible, such as keeping it in the high school. So I just wanted to let you know we were struggling with the same thing.
Motion.
Maybe before you do that, I just point out that for those of you who weren't at the last meeting, that the chairman will be probably meeting with our financial officers group this month to just set some timelines for the broader budget process too. So we've, rather than do it by email, we're trying to Shanghai him into an actual meeting so we can lay all that out. So that's
Plenty of vacation
Oh,
days to
yeah.
use this year.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you.